Alright, on our turn 37. Let's look at our messages real quick. So, we cast Arouse Hunger, we got 10 air gems from Tianchi as part of a trade. We found several magic sites this turn, which is great. Cast Dark Knowledge. This is one of the only site-searching spells that I actually use, and I use it because, especially with a nation like this where I have very limited numbers of death mages, having death mages walk around site-searching sometimes is a little bit inefficient in terms of time. On top of that, Dark Knowledge only requires a Death 1 mage to cast. It does cost 4 gems, but I've been building up Death Gems through most of the game so far, and I'm willing to start spending them, as evinced by my repeated castings of Arouse Hunger and things like that. So, I have my Revenants casting Dark Knowledge, so I found a Forest of the Dead, which gives me a Death Gem. I found in Shade Forest, I found a Painted Cave, which gives me an Astral Gem. And in the Caverns of Neck, I found a Mist Caverns that give me water and air. And I found this because these guys were hanging out here, and they built a lab. And the reason they did that was so they can summon cave crabs. So cave crabs are very, very large crabs. They're undisciplined animals. They have high protection, they only have one attack, but that attack is special because the one attack of the cave crab, it does 25 armor-piercing damage, and it's untyped. It's not piercing, slashing, or blunt. What this means is it can't be resisted by effects like Temper Flesh that give you damage resistance. So cave crabs are very, very hardy. They have like 50-something HP, and they have this high damage attack that is difficult to resist. They are undisciplined, but they make good fodder, and when it comes time to fight Agartha, I think having some cave crabs around would be kinda nice. So, other messages. We took control of Cormark. We stormed in with our ghouls and held the fort under siege. Great. Battles in Dunster, our little retreating army wiped out some AI Nazcan province defense. In Sleepy Mountains, our one tyrant attacked this province and took it over. So this is Aristwaddle. He doesn't have any regen items, unfortunately, but he does have decent gear, except for that. So he's going to do the usual script. He's going to cast Iron Skin on himself, he's going to cast Fire Shield, and he's going to summon Earth Power, and then he's going to go into combat with his Fatigue Neutrality. He's actually Fatigue Negative, I believe. He should be negative by at least 2. Yeah, you can see his fatigue is going down. Him and his legendary command of the undead will surely win the day. And so it's just province defense, so he just wipes him out. It's not a struggle for him. In Lapintha, an Ashdod scout attacked my scout, I guess? Ashdod has gone AI. And so, yeah, my scout was set to retreat, so he just ran away. Excuse me, and that's fine, because Lapintha is this province, the fort, which I was holding under siege. I knew I wasn't going to hold it anyway. Then in Lorberau, the Bakemono attacked me. So this is this province here. So remember, I had this army trapped. I knew they were going to get into a fight, and I knew they were going to lose. So they moved across the river, as I had kind of suspected they would do, and they ran into my Communion army here. So my Barbarian Province defense is running forward, my troops are just holding for the moment, and we are going to drop some Fire Elementals. Also, we cast Flaming Arrows, because why not? Certainly don't hurt nothing. Yep, more Fire Elementals. The hordes of skeletons are starting to come out, but frankly, they are not going to be great in this context. The Flaming Arrows are effective against Bakemono. They have 20 protection, but the regular shot plus that 8 armor piercing damage flame shot can hurt them. It does chip damage against Bakemono, but chip damage is often enough. And now we're starting to throw down some Thunderstrikes. So the skeletons are charging forward. They're not going to do well against the Fire Elementals. They're just not. I'm sorry. It's sorry to say it, but Skeletons versus Fire Elementals, it's bad. So you can see my fatigue is still very, 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 very low. So the Fire Elementals are charging in. My cavalry are dead, but that's okay. The Dai Bakemono also going to suffer against fire elementals because of that fire shield effect. And of course, my own flaming arrows aren't going to hurt my fire elementals hardly at all. So we can speed things up. All they have now is minor damage spells. They are occasionally summoning the dead, but the Bakemono sorcerers are mostly fatigued out. And the fire elementals, along with a few phantasmal wolves, charge forward, start to burn them down. Yeah, it looks like my mages have defaulted to summoning phantasmal wolves, which isn't great, but I mean, they are chaff, I guess. In any case, the Bakemono are either killed or driven from the field, and when they retreat, of course, they all die, because they have nowhere to go. 4 of my units did retreat. You can see I did take casualties among the infantry, as is to be expected, and among the cataphracts, but who cares? So, also in Lorberau, I got Unrest and Magic, and in Dunster, I got a Hurricane. There's a spell that can cause that, but it's also a random event, so not too worried about it, to be honest. Especially because it's Dunster that I don't really care about at the moment. So, I lost and killed a lot of scouts. So in Shepherd's Haven and in Shinuyama, I killed Agarthan scouts. In Shepherd's Haven, I also killed a Vanheim scout. I also killed a group of brigands in Shinuyama, so that's nice. I lost a scout in Gold Crags. I lost a scout in Holberg to Blackhawks. And my patrolling troops have killed a whole bunch of people. The god of Nazca has been permanently vanquished. At the end, he did not rule a single province and had nowhere to return. So sad. So, movement-wise. So, I've got my ghouls besieging that fort. This army is actually splitting up a little bit. Slab Brickjaw is going over... I may actually want to swap these around because I've just realized that might be a mistake. Slab Brickjaw, why don't you go over there? And Alizines, you go over there, because barbarians can... They have such high damage, they can beat down even very, very tough targets sometimes. And Alizines is, I think, better suited to dealing with barbarians because he just has a crap ton of troops. He's still going to lose some of the infantry, but the archers... 60 archers should be able to cut down barbarians double quick. Shinuyama basically doesn't exist anymore. The only thing they still have is this fort. They've got a couple of provinces on land and 3 water provinces, and I think that is about it. Ooh, some ghouls. So, in terms of threat, they're not much. However, in terms of annoyance, they do still have the chance to be a nuisance, because they've gotten some recruitment back right here. So, all of my forces down here are surging northward. We're going to descend on Lapintha and crush it. It will take a couple of turns to get there, unfortunately. We're going to take this province back for the income. We're taking these 2 provinces this turn just to kind of secure things. After we take this province, we'll move on to take these 2. And we're just going to push him into a corner and force him into a stack fight. And we win stack fights. We've proven that fairly conclusively. Gem-wise, we're actually doing really well, which is nice. We've got 20, 30, 40, 52 gem income right at the moment, which for this part of the game ain't bad. We can look at the score graphs. We can see our gem income has spiked as we've taken provinces from Shinuyama. In terms of research a few baubles because we've been pulling people off research in order to go do things, but we're back researching down here with this stack of mages. We're researching up here. Gonna recruit, I think, 1 or 2 more Trophimos oppressors to sit here before I go back to shackled mages, just to have them. I want to have a large, powerful, functional communion in each of these forts, so that, if I have to, I can go to war with Pythium without any prep time. Related to that, there are a few air items I want to forge. So, where are my air sages? There's an air sage, and you are going to forge winged shoes. Why winged shoes? Because they let you fly. And that is part of a Phlegran Communion War strategy that I've talked about on the Discord, but not on the videos. Yeah, can't hurt to be honest. Basically, here's how it goes. Phlegran Communions always get the first shot because they automatically start in Communion, whereas most Communions have to cast the Communion Master and Communion Slave spells before they can start to cast spells. Also, the The way spell timing works is spells go off in half their cast time, and then the rest of the cast time is spent resting and doing nothing. Excuse me, still got that cough. Which brings me to the spell Earthquake. It has a casting time of 200%. That means that if you count with the start of the battle as 0, at the end of the first combat round, the first 100% tick of time, Earthquake will be cast, and it will do 8 armor-piercing damage to, defense negating, of course, to everyone who's standing on the ground and isn't flying or floating. Well, so most communions will spend a turn casting Communion Master / Communion Slave. And then the second round, they'll start casting personal defensive buffs. They don't actually start casting damage spells until the third round. Well, Phlegran Communions can start casting damage spells round 1, including Earthquake. So here's how it goes. Let's say a Phlegran Communion is fighting a battle against another big communion, like, say, Pythium. Round 1, the Pythium Communion casts Communion Master and or Communion Slave. Theurg Communicants don't have to cast Communion Slave, but their other Theurg Communion Masters do still have to cast Communion Master. Round 1, let's say you have 3 Trophimos Oppressors. All Trophimos Oppressors have earth magic. Half of them have air, half of them have water. So, what happens is you give 2 of them flying shoes to make them fly. Your third one, round 1, casts Personal Flight, which also propagates down to all of your Communion Slaves and makes them all fly. Now your entire communion is flying. The other 2, round 1, start casting Earthquake. It goes off at the start of the second round, after the enemy communion has cast Communion Master and Communion Slave, but before they can even start casting personal buffs. And so it hits before they have any defenses and wipes them out. Now, it won't be 100% death, but 2 Earthquakes means 2 damage 8 armor-piercing hits on everyone. It is negated by defense, but the fact of the matter is, Communion Mages don't have high defense. Defense skill 9 on Theurgs, defense skill 7 on Theurg Communicants. If these guys get hit by an Earthquake, most of them are going to die. If they get hit by 2 Earthquakes, pretty much all of them are going to die. Killing off Communion Slaves like that ruins a Communion, because the Communion is still scripted to cast powerful, high-fatigue spells, usually. Now all of a sudden their magic levels drop, and the fatigue spread is a lot lower than it was. The end result is, if you do that, that's just an example. Flegra can pull off a lot of things like this, and if you do something like that just by casting a powerful, especially battlefield wipe spells round 1, a Phlegran Communion can usually just outright destroy an enemy communion. This is what Flegra does, and this is why Flegra is interesting. When it comes to, there are lots of ways in which Flegra is not a good nation. They're not good at counter-raiding. They're not good at handling stealthy enemy units. They struggle against small parties moving all over the place. They are vulnerable to assassinations because they're reliant on a whole lot of mages that are not actually powerful individually. So if you start assassinating Trophimos Oppressors, they're not going to be able to do much to save themselves. But when you're on the battlefield, staring down the barrel of a big Phlegran battle communion, you're fucked. That is like the one thing they do, and they do it really, really well. I think Phlegran Communions might legitimately be the strongest in the game, just because A, they have access to literally every elemental spell, and B, they start casting round 1 while you are still communioning. So either Phlegran Communions can start laying down pain in the very first round, or they can leisurely take a round to buff and make themselves almost invincible or very, very hard to kill. And then they still start casting spells at the same time any other communion does. It's a very powerful advantage. It's effectively equivalent of the old Defender casts first advantage that people had in Dominions 4, except instead of Defenders, it's Flegra. And that was hugely, hugely important. Wars were decided by the fact that defenders could cast round 1 and attackers didn't get a chance to cast defensive spells first. So, my point is, so long as I have 3 or 4 Trophimos Oppressors and at least 8 slaves in each of these forts, I'm not scared of Pythium. I'm just not. They can besiege my forts if they want. I have a lot of options for punishing them if they try to do that. Pythium fighting Phlegra, I think, is in a terrible spot because, well, Pythium relies primarily on communions, and their communions going up against Phlegran communions will usually lose. Now, there is a way around this issue. There's an item, of course, that you can forge, the Crystal Matrix and the Slave Matrix, and you can forge them and give them to people and make them automatically Communion Masters or Communion Slaves. It has the same effect as the... oh, that's a Sage. It has the same effect as this ability. If you're holding a Slave Matrix, you are a Communion Slave. If you're holding a Communion Matrix, you are a Communion Master. But they cost gems, like a lot of gems. If you are forging Communion Matrices and giving them to all of your Communion Masters, which is what you have to do to stop turn 1 wipes from Phlegran Communions, that means you've spent like 40 or 80 or 100 gems. Not in one battle, maybe, because you probably only have, I don't know, 7 or 8 Communion Masters, but I believe, if I recall correctly, Matrices are 10 gems each. So, if you have 6 or 7 Communion Masters, that's 60 or 70 gems you spent on that. And if you did that, what's going to happen is Phlegra's going to bounce a scout off you, notice that all of your Communion Masters have Matrices, and instead of trying to go for the turn 1 wipe, they're just going to summon literally 100 elementals, which Phlegran Communions can do. Once I hit Conjuration 7, I can cast the Living Foo spells. These spells down here. One second. Yep, there we go. Like Living Clouds. It takes 4 air. With an 8 Slave Communion, all of my air random masters are 4 air. With a 16 Slave Communion, i.e. a standard battle communion, they're 5. So they're going to summon 5 size 4 air elementals every round. And with 16 slaves, the fatigue cost is split up so much they can do that 4 or 5 times each without blinking. So, yeah, I could literally summon 100 air elementals and just drop them on the enemy army. Air elementals, of course, are fast-moving and trampling, and have an armor-negating shock attack for anything they can't trample. So, that would be extremely painful. Now, it would cost a lot of gems. Summoning mass numbers of elementals costs significant numbers of gems. But if I'm going into a big stack versus stack communion fight, who wins it will probably decide a war, and I'm absolutely willing to spend a bunch of gems to win that fight. If you've seen my Machaca campaign, you notice the one battle where Baratos spent over 100 gems just on his mages, plus all the gems he must have spent casting Stygian Paths and Cloud Trapeze to get that army into place. Spending gems to win battles when they're important is just what you do. And since my gem income is actually fairly healthy now, as I was saying, since my gem income is actually fairly healthy now, I can afford to do it. So, that's why I'm not scared of Pythium. Similar tactics will work fine against Agartha as well, except that since Agartha isn't in communions, they do get to cast personal buffs round 1 if they want to. Now, let's look at Agarthan mages real quick. I've forgotten what the name of his pretender is. There it is, Secular Humanism. The main Agarthan mage is the Golem Crafter. Golem Crafters do have Earth, so they can cast Iron Skin, and Iron Skin makes you pretty much invulnerable to Earthquake. Not entirely invulnerable. It ends up being a net of 10 protection versus 8 damage, so a few repeated castings of Earthquake will still kill people with Iron Skin on, but it makes it a lot less efficient. Earth Readers I'm not scared of. They're only really useful against the undead. And then, of course, Oracles of the Ancients, they have low protection, but they have tons of hit points. So Earthquake is not going to kill Oracles of the Ancients in any realistic time frame. Against Agartha, Mass Elementals would work well, Mass Thunderstrike would work well, especially because Iron Skin makes you more vulnerable to shock damage. One thing that may actually work well is the 1-2 punch, where you start off one round, you send in an Earthquake Communion, and wipe out some mages, and then the next battle, you shift them all to Thunderstrike, expecting that the enemy will have them all cast Iron Skin in order to keep himself from being Earthquaked to death again. This is the other big strength of Phlegran Communions, the fact that they can just change what they're doing without changing mages because they have 3 paths, which most Communion mages, well, most Communion mages do have multiple paths like this, but they don't have the combat utility of having every elemental path available in every Communion. It's not common to have this kind of flexibility, and it is very, very powerful. So, in any case, I've recruited another Tyrant who is moving up towards the front. I'm recruiting a few infantry, a little short on money just because I'm recruiting so many mages at this point. But that's fine. Like, yeah, sure. Recruit mages until I'm out of money. I don't care. That's what I want. I could still be casting Arcane Probing. I'm not too worried about my astral income because I don't use pearls for much. Yeah, I think this is going to be most of my moves. In terms of strategy, I'm gonna finish wiping out Shinuyama. I'll have to summon some water beings to get into these water provinces. I'm gonna have to talk to Agartha to make sure. I've signed a non-aggression pact with Agartha, formally at this point. And some people will be saying, why would you do that? Agartha is the biggest threat in the game at the moment. Well, I don't think he is, for a couple of reasons. And no offense to you, Nasajin. This is just my realistic assessment. First of all, he sucks at scripting. He's a new player, relatively new. And in terms of map strategy, he's pretty solid. In terms of battle scripting, he's bad, which I understand because I'm not great at battle scripting either. But like the fact that he's fought, I think, 5 battles in Urmor now, and only now, after Urmor has actually gone AI, is he actually going to win. Urmor did a great job, don't get me wrong, but there were a number of key mistakes made. On top of that, I'm not actually as worried about Agartha as I am about some of the others. For example, Tianxi has ballooned tremendously, and I don't know exactly how big they are, but they're big. They're pretty large. They own a lot of territory. Also, they're looking a little bit more vulnerable since they lost their god, so that's also a consideration. On the other side, Pythium is also big, and as I just said, their main combat strategy is extremely vulnerable to my main combat strategy. In my opinion, now I haven't fought a full-scale war against Pythium, so I could be totally off base here, but in my opinion so far, based on what I've seen, a Pythium versus Flegrei war is going to be extremely hard for Pythium to win. Basically, their main strategy is going to have to be trying to enslave Phlegrei's Communion mages, which they can do. I think it's in Thaumaturgy. Basically, it's going to have to be astral magic. Yeah, they have Enslaved Mind, but it only hits one person at a time, and it doesn't get you a mage, actually. At level 9, you have Master Enslave, but nobody is anywhere near level 9 research yet. I pretty much guarantee nobody has level 9 yet. There might be a couple of people with levels. There might be somebody with a level 7. But my research isn't, at this point, my research isn't awful. It's still not super fast, but it's not awful. And I'm not going to hit level 7 for at least another 4 or 5 turns. I don't think anybody else should be too far ahead of me. Might be off base there as well, but we'll see. I'm also worried about Abyssia, because Abyssia has just a big old expanse of territory here. They just showed up in Olmish territory, and they started over here somewhere. And I'm not a happy man about the prospect of Abyssia owning the world. Now, I have a long-standing non-aggression pact with Abyssia, and I don't have a border with them, so I can't do anything about it right at the moment, but I'm a little wary. So, over on this side in Dunster, this little army is kind of trapped. If this army of Bakemono decides to come down and beat them up, there's not much I can do about it. There is an option, and that option would be Cloud Trapeze, because I do have a number of air random sages. I've got 3 here. I've got 2, I believe, here. So that's 5. I've already got 1 in the province. So if I can free up the money, what I could do is build a lab here. And if I build a lab here, I can give him gems, which means he can summon air elementals. I could assemble 6 air random sages in the province. It would be a lot of air gems to do it. But 6 air 2 mages could cast 12 full-size air elementals without too much struggle. Assuming he came down here with a partial army in order to try and kill me, that might actually win. If he came down with the whole army, it would be very unwise, because I would then immediately start marching troops over this way. But if he came down at me with the whole army, it probably wouldn't win, but 12 air elementals would have an excellent shot at killing off a couple of his Bakemono sorcerers and or Ubas. So I'm thinking about doing that. That, by the way, is one of Phlegra's only defenses against raiding, is the ability to cloud trapeze air random sages on top of people. Because it's, no, not forge items, cast ritual spell. Yeah, cloud trapeze, enchantment level 4. It costs 3 gems per. So it would cost 15 gems to drop the trapeze there. And then 12 air elementals would, of course, cost... It would actually cost 24 gems for 12 air elementals, because I need to spend 2 per, since these guys are only air 2. So overall, it would end up costing close to 40 air gems. Might still be worth it. Do I have a guy forging that, forging those winged shoes yet? I thought I told somebody to do it. Of course, these guys are currently carrying air gems, so I actually have more air gems than I think. I'm going to take the gems off them for now, so that they are available to use. Listen to that voice crack. I'm practically pubescent! And I'll also take the gems off him. I'll reassign these gems before these guys go into combat, don't worry. So I've got 35 air gems, I'm getting 6 per month. Might be worth it. I have a guy forging a dwarven hammer right now. He's forging a pair of earth boots. That's where all my earth gems are going. I could use more earth gems. I could use more of every gem, to be honest. I'm starting to transition to a gem-based economy here, and it is going a little bit slowly just because I don't have many gems. Once I hit evocation... I'm pondering my research goals. I need construction 6 at some point pretty soon. Evocation level 7 would give me very, very good combat power, and so I do want to go there, because it will give me Shimmering Fields, which is 50 Thunderstrikes. It'll give me Firestorm, which lets me set a whole battlefield on fire with my Tyrants. And it will give me Rain of Stones, which interrupts enemy spellcasting. It'll also give me Acid Storm, which is like Firestorm, except it does less damage, but the damage isn't fire type and so can't be resisted by fire resistance. Like, this is actually another way Flegra has to wipe out Communions. You just go onto the battlefield with one Tyrant and cast Firestorm. And the Firestorm will burn to death anybody who has not given himself fire resistance. Level 6 would be a decent place to be, though, because level 6 gives me Magma Eruption. And Magma Eruption is like... Magma Eruption is basically a somewhat weaker Maws of the Earth, except in my case, since my Trophimos Oppressors will be casting at level 4 or 5, it's going to be a much larger area of effect and do extra damage. It's only bludgeoning damage, but it's quite a bit of bludgeoning damage. Yeah, and you can use Magma Eruption. If you can spam Magma Eruption, which all of my Oppressors can, you can use it to take out waves of infantry in a big, big hurry. I don't know. I have to think about it. Definitely have to think about it. It's even possible that I could eventually cast Wailing Winds with a Tyrant. If I have a Death 2 random Tyrant and I give him a staff, that makes him Death 3. I'd have to empower him in air, which would be expensive. But if I did that, then he could use 2 Death Gems to cast Wailing Winds. Huh. Something worth thinking about. Eventually, as Flegra, you do want to maximize Evocation, or at least go up to level 8. You may not need level 9, because the only thing level 9 really gives you is Flame Storm. And you already got Shimmering Fields earlier. Flamestorm is actually lower AoE. It costs less fatigue, so it's more spammable, but since you're casting these from Communions, that's not as big a deal. And it does objectively less damage to anyone who's wearing any kind of armor. So, going up to level 9 to get Flamestorm would be nice because I could cast Flamestorm several times simultaneously. And it costs less gems. So there's that. Neeful Flames is kind of just a worse version of both of them. I don't know why Neeful Flames exist. I mean, it's cold damage, that's fine. But cold damage is actually easier to resist than either fire or shock. Like Undead, which people tend to summon in massive quantities, for example, already have cold resistance that makes them pretty much immune to the spell. So, Neeful Flames, not really worth anything. But Flamestorm and Shimmering Fields, definitely worth it. So we're going to hit Evo 7. After that, I think it's going to be Construction 6. Enchantment, going up to Enchantment level 5, or going up to Enchantment level 6 is definitely something I want to do just because I want to get these spells. And eventually, I want to get Earthblood Deep Well. Now, I expect that Agartha is going to get this first. But if I could steal it from them, that would be really, really good. So I may actually focus Enchantment. I definitely need Construction. Let's go Evo 6, Construction 6. No. Evocation 7. Construction is... Enchantment is secondary. Construction level 6 will be good. I want to go up to Construction level 6. I can't say words. And then we'll go Enchantment 7. Although actually by that time I'll probably want to do Conjuration level 7 instead, because I want to have the ability to spam huge quantities of elementals, as opposed to just some elementals. Also at level 7 I could summon Mound Fiends. That would be great. Oh, being able to summon Mound Fiends would be nice. Ah, so many choices. So many choices. We're going to stick with Evocation level 7 for now. We're going to stick with this research plan for the moment. Down here, I'm recruiting more sages. That's fine. Hopefully I'll get another air random or two. What I want is, I need to free up... I'm going to try this little trap over here. I need to free up 500 gold for a lab. And since I'm not really recruiting troops anywhere, the only place I can do that is by canceling the recruitment of mages. Normally that's not a great idea. But in this particular circumstance, I think I can make it work. I don't necessarily need another Lizard Shaman right now, so give me a Shackled Mage instead. That'll be cheaper. Instead of a Sage, give me a Shackled Mage. And over here, let's delay the Tyrant one turn, and only recruit one Shackled Mage there. Okay. So now, you can build a lab. Yeah, we're gonna spring a defensive air elemental trap. It'll be fine. It'll be fun. It'll be a good old time. Cloud trapeze everybody in. Air elemental, and then script them to cast lightning bolts. They will fatigue out after the second air elemental, but 12 air elementals should be enough to finish the job. Unless, like I said, literally this whole army comes down here. If the whole army comes down, I'm going to lose no matter what. But let's put you in a box so you're a little bit less interception vulnerable, maybe. But it'll work out fine. We're going to put the ghouls way in the back to attract attack rear or fire rear orders. And that'll be good. Okay, so that's the turn. Aristottle over here is jumping way over to this side so that he can't be hit by this army. He can't, unfortunately, cross there without going into Tianqi territory. And that would make Tianqi mad, so actually he's going to hop down here and take this province. He might as well. Aristottle can operate independently very, very effectively. What I would like is... Oh, also, I'm forging a Thistle Mace with Hulk Smash. Once I've forged it, I'll give it to one of my Lizard Shamans, and that Lizard Shaman will then be on Ring of Regeneration duty, and Vine Shields. I'll actually forge a second Thistle Mace, give it to a second Lizard Shaman, and they will be pumping out Vine Shields and Rings of Regeneration, which will make my Phlegran Tyrants so much better. I should have done that a long time ago, and I was always busy with other things and I wasn't thinking about it, so that was a mistake. But now that my Nature Gem income is something, it's not great, but it's something, and I'm getting a second hammer out, I will definitely be handing each and every one of my Tyrants a Vine Shield and a Ring of Regeneration. 20 Nature Gems, which are rare for me, but gems well spent. All of this was a way of mentioning Pronos with his... I took the Ring of Regeneration away from Pronos. He was doing fine. He's only got the Never Healing Wound. He has grown his arm back, although I have not given him a second weapon yet. I gave it to Slab Brickjaw, just because the problem with Tyrants is that since they are protection dependent, they take chip damage, because, I think I've said this before, they take chip damage because every now and then protection fails. Somebody gets a critical hit, or somebody's dice explode, and they do some damage to you. But it's not much, because their protection is so high. Well, regeneration on Tyrants means they're regenerating 6 or 7 hit points a round. If they're surrounded by chaff, which a couple of my Tyrants, I think 3 of my Tyrants so far, have died to just being outright surrounded by chaff. If they're surrounded by chaff, this 10% regeneration will make them win. Or at least it will make them live a lot longer. I think it's entirely possible that a Tyrant with a Ring of Regeneration could straight up outlast pretty much most Skelespam. Most of it. Like, it's possible you could out-Skelespam a regenerating Tyrant, but it would be a lot harder than it is to out-Skelespam one who is not regenerating. So, yeah, Slab, he doesn't have a shield yet, because I'm not up to forging Vine Shields yet. But he will do all of that. I'm probably not going to be able to get Earthblood Deepwell, to be honest, because it requires Earth 6, and Hulk Smash can't wear boots. And I can't forge Bloodstones because I don't have any blood. So the best I can recruit is Earth 3. So in order to get up to Earth 6, I'm going to have to climb the whole tower of boosters in order to be able to forge a Staff of Elemental Mastery, which I can do, but not for a while. I would expect that Agartha is going to cast Earthblood Deepwell before I can. That is, in a way, an argument for rushing Agartha down. That said, I'm not going to attack them yet. I am going to end up fighting them at some point here, but at the very, very least, I'm going to remain peaceful while I clean up Shinuyama. After that, it will depend. I might go in to clean up Vanheim if nobody else is. I might go to war with Tianxi. It'll just kind of depend on who's what and what's who and who's where and what's where. Pythium, like I said, Pythium kind of looks like a good target. I already have significant forces on this border. I could go in and take their fort with probably no more commitment. Like, if I wanted to take this fort, I would move all these guys to this province, carrying a bunch of gems. These guys would just sit here, playing dumb, and then on the next turn they would both attack the fort. I don't have much siege strength, because they're both communions, so probably what I would do is... what's the defense of that? Yeah, wall integrity 250, whatever. I would forge a couple of items. I would try to scrape the earth gems together, get up to construction 6, forge a couple of gate cleavers. That would help me bust this thing down in 2 turns, and then my communion would crush their communion inside. So yeah, that's always an option. Because they have Theurg Acolytes. And their Theurg Acolytes are just astral. Yeah. Theurgs are much more dangerous in a communion because they have air and water, so they can summon elementals, and they can thunderstrike and all that kind of good stuff. But I just don't see Pythium winning a full-scale war against me. So they may well be my next target, especially because they also own several of these underwater provinces and have no good way to defend them. So my built-up underwater units should be able to take out theirs. But yeah, that's for the future. For now, finishing off Shinuyama, transferring forces north in order to ensure we destroy this army and take this fort, At that point, that will give me more death and nature income, both of which are very welcome. After that, we'll kind of reassess, see where we are, and move on from there. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you in turn 38. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is turn 38 of Honor, Spring 3, late spring, in Year 3 of the Ascension Wars. A lot of stuff has happened. The geopolitical situation has been shifting. And I'm not entirely certain what way I'm gonna jump. Here's the big news this turn. Agartha has cast Earthblood Deep Well, which of course is the Earth Gem Generator spell. That generates 20 Earth Gems per turn. Now keep in mind, my gem income at the moment is a little under 50 per turn. So a spell generating 20 gems per turn is a big freaking deal. Especially for Agartha, which can use huge numbers of Earth Gems to summon huge numbers of statues. Just a minute ago I was looking at research. The Agarthan spell, I don't have it of course, but I can show you where it is. It's in Enchantment 8, I'm sorry. They have an Enchantment 3 spell that lets them summon Sentinels, their sacred, high protection, high health statues, at level 3. At level 7 is Earthblood Deepwell. At level 8 is Hall of Statues, a spell that spends 30 Earth Gems to summon 20 plus statues. It's a, and of course, if you have somebody who can cast Earthblood Deepwell, that person can also cast Hall of Statues. So it's a big deal. Having access to Earthblood Deepwell that generates 20 Earth Gems is, it's an important thing. I don't remember if I actually said, also, Uruk has cast Mother Oak, and is getting 10 Nature Gems per turn from that. Here's the issue with Earthblood Deepwell. I'm not in a position to contest it very easily. Because the highest Earth I have is 4, and that's on HULK SMASH, who doesn't have feet or arms, and so cannot wear Earth boosters. Can't use Earth boots. There's a spell called Transformation that I don't have access to yet, but that I could theoretically get access to that could turn him into something else that might theoretically have arms. But there's all kinds of downsides to that, so I don't want to do it. Which means he's limited to crowns, laurels, and miscellaneous items. And that means he can only ever... I mean, if I forged a ring of sorcery, or I'm sorry, a ring of wizardry, he could boost himself to Earth 6. But that's never going to happen. It is impossible. So, I'm not going to be able to take Earthblood Deepwell away. Why do you have a Thistle Mace? Oh, you must have stolen it. You stole it from one of the guys. Okay. Now I can contest Mother Oak. I can cast Mother Oak. I would have to accumulate the gems for it, and of course gems are a little bit tight right now, as they have been forever. So it would take a while to build that up. So, questions kind of abound. They have an Angel of Fury. What is an Angel of Fury? 1 second, I have to look that up. Hold the phone. Okay, so the Angel of Fury is a Conjuration 7 Astral national summon that only Pythium and Marignan have access to. So I know he's got up to Research 7 as well, which does tell me that I'm a little bit behind in research. Probably I'm too spread out. I have a strong tendency to do that. I have a tendency to get distracted, and I will be looking at other lower level spells, and instead of just going, okay, I need to go for what I want to go for, I'll end up like this. I'll end up having level 5s and 6s and 4s everywhere, and other people will already have level 7 in something, which does give a distinct advantage. It's a flaw, and it's one that I need to work on. In any case, that's highly irritating. I'm going to move this guy over here to build a temple, maybe. Well, no. I already have magic. I have a magic scale there. I could use 3 magic scales like I have on all my other forts. Really could. Yeah, let's build a temple and get my domain spread a little bit. In any case, that's a distraction. So, Pythium is at level 7 Conjuration, at least. Agartha is at level 7 Enchantment, at least. I've talked to him. He's telling me he's at level 8 enchantment and also level 8 alteration, or very high level alteration. I don't believe that. He's certainly ahead of me in research. He's not that much ahead of me. In order to be that much ahead of me, he would have to be making like 2,000 or 3,000 research points a month. And that's not... He's trying to bluff me there. I think because he's worried that I'm going to declare war and invade him, which I may well do. I'm not the preeminent power here. I'm one of the players. I am not winning the game. Abyssia is a big player. Tianqi is a fairly sizable player. Agartha is an important player, albeit not quite the largest. Pythium is a notable player as well. There's a lot of different things going on in this game. I'm not going to be able to follow my preferred strategy of fighting wars primarily against weaker players that I can overrun. Basically, I'm not going to be able to be a bully much longer, which is, I mean, fair. Now, that said, yeah, things are gonna start turning nasty pretty quickly here. Slab Brickjaw is moving back to Shinuyama. Aizones is taking his troops up to siege Cormark. In battles this turn, I've been summoning cave crabs, which are amphibious. I talked about them earlier. They're amphibious, they're beefy, they have high protection, high strength. Their crab claws are armor-piercing but otherwise untyped. So they do just a whole bunch of armor-piercing damage, and that's it. And they can't be resisted by fortitude. They're not piercing or slashing or whatever, so they can't be easily resisted by the Agarthan statues, which resist most types of damage and take only half damage even after their high protection is accounted for. It makes them very tough to deal with. Cave crabs, however, can deal with them not super efficiently, but 25 armor-piercing untyped damage will hurt an Agarthan statue, and 54 protection 22 hit points will survive the counter-strikes of an Agarthan statue for at least a couple of rounds. So, there's that. I am worried about the Agarthan statues. In big stack fights, I win. I'm just going to lay that out. In big stack fights against Agarthan statues, I will win, especially as soon as I hit Evocation level 7, which will happen very soon, 2 turns, and at Evocation level 7, I can cast Shimmering Fields, which does armor-negating shock damage, a lot of it, over a large area. It does cost air gems and take a lot of fatigue, so there's that. At level 7, I will also be able to cast Rain of Stones, which will interrupt his Golem Crafters from casting spells. I will be able to cast Firestorm, which won't be entirely relevant against the statues themselves, but can be used to burn down his mages if they don't put fire resistance on themselves. I would also be able to cast Acid Storm, which is like Firestorm, but a little less effective, except that it can't be resisted. There's no resistance against Acid Storm damage. So, it just kills people. It will eventually kill people even through Iron Skin, just by rolling high at some point. So, yeah. It's interesting. It'll be an interesting area. I am going to have to get up to construction level 6 in order to get underwater effectively. I may, however, abandon that. I may go straight down either alteration or enchantment. I think I'm going to go down to alteration level 6 to get green lions, wave warriors, and Ironbane. Ironbane doesn't help against his sacred statues. It does help against his normal sacreds, and it helps against his normal troops. Petrify is also a nice spell that he's probably going to be deploying against me, that's for sure. Level 6 will also get me Soul Vortex, which would be the last piece of the puzzle when it came to thugging out, Soul Vortex and Phoenix Pyre and Marble Warriors. Him having Marble Warriors also incidentally will make his troops very, very tough, so there's that. My possession of a lot of air magic is going to be crucial, because it means that I can ignore the extremely high protection of his troops. Also, the other kind of tack to take would be to go down construction heavy and get weapons of sharpness, which is an earth buff that turns the damage of everyone who's hit by it into armor-piercing damage, so it halves protection. Now, the reason that would be useful is because these guys have axes, and armor-piercing axe damage would hurt statues. It would be 18, it wouldn't hurt them much, but it would be 18 armor-piercing damage versus effectively, he took the hard skin bless, it would effectively be 18 versus 14 protection or 13 protection, and then the damage is halved. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I can have a lot more healits than he can have statues. A lot more healits than he can have statues. And in terms of magical support, I think the damage that his magical support causes is fairly limited. Plus, of course, I can spam out air elementals to disrupt his mages basically at will. So, one solution would be to go heavy on evocation and rely entirely on my mage core. Another solution would be to mass up buffs on Healit warriors. I can cast Bark Skin now in Communions, since I have Alteration 5. I can cast, if I get up to Construction 7, I can cast Weapons of Sharpness. I can cast Strength of Giants to give them 4 extra points of damage to make it 22 armor piercing. And I think that's probably the direction I'm going to go. So, we're going to skip the enchantment for now. Except possibly Enchantment 5 to start putting up Watchers, maybe? Enlivening Gargoyles. The problem is those use Air and Earth Gems, and I'm already critically short on Air and Earth Gems. Pale Riders would be a good spell to get. And Enchantment level 5 will only take 1 turn, so we're going to go Construction 6, Enchantment 5, Construction... No, we'll just go Construction 7 and then Enchantment 5. And that'll be what we do there. At some point, we will also want Conjuration 7. Because at Conjuration 7, I can spam out Living Clouds and Living Water. But I need Construction level 6 before Living Water becomes super useful anyway. Okay. Yeah, I think this is going to be the plan. Level 6, I can also summon Spectres, which would be useful. And Sea King's Court. If I'm going underwater, Sea King's Court will be almost mandatory. I won't say entirely mandatory, but nearly mandatory. But once again, I need Construction 6. So we're going to hit Construction 6 no matter what. Evocation level 7 be done in about 2 turns, like I said. Possibly 3. Construction level 6 will be just a couple turns after that. And we'll see where we are. I do definitely want to get Evocation level 7 first. After that, like I said, I'm vacillating a little bit. The longer Agartha has Earthblood Deepwell up, the more damage he can do. What I might do is Pythium has Astral Magic in a big way. Let me see, what is... What's the Dispelling spell? Because there's a, there's an astral spell, yeah, Dispel, which destroys an active global enchantment. So, and it only costs 30 pearls. So if I can get people to contribute pearls to Pythium, Pythium may well be able to dispel that, the Earthblood Deepwell, which would be really, really handy. Otherwise, there's some very major players in this game that are very frightening. Abyssia, if Abyssia has a full-scale blood economy going, I haven't seen much of Abyssia fighting, so I don't know, but I bet he does at this point in the game. I bet he has a fairly substantial blood economy. He's probably pulling in, Middle-Age Abyssia can't recruit blood mages everywhere, but he's still probably pulling in somewhere between 75 and 100 blood slaves, I want to say, if he's been focusing on it, which he should be as Abyssia. 75 and 100 blood slaves a turn, which gives him a lot of capability. That said, I can still fight blood summons just fine. Pythium, if he's at super high level enchantment... No, conjuration is what he's at really high levels of. The danger from astral mages is Soul Slay, which is a single target Soul falls off spell. Either you make a magic resistance roll or you die. Paralyze, which is the same except it paralyzes them. And Enslave Mind, which takes your units away from you. As well as Master Enslave, which does attempts to do that to everyone on the whole battlefield. So fighting Pythium in the late game definitely becomes a race. That said, like I've said before, I'm not scared of Pythian communions, because my communions beat theirs. He's definitely building up in Gold Crags. That may be a response to a perceived build-up on my part, I'm not sure. He can, now unfortunately from Gold Crags he can get straight into the Caverns of Gnek. So that's an issue that has to be considered. And it's something I'm just going to have to deal with. This guy has to move up there. My scouts are already sneaking around. Yeah, Pythium and I have been kind of eyeing each other for a while. I'm still indecisive, I really am. I just have not decided who I'm going to war with, and I kind of just need to make a call. It could be Tianxi, it could be Pythium, or it could be Agartha. All three of them are big. All three of them are going to be nasty, nasty wars. All three of them are going to require full commitment, which means as soon as I finish off Shinuyama, I need to be moving towards a border. And to be honest, the default choice is probably Vanheim and then Agartha. That said, it looks to me like Pythium is probably about to go in against Vanheim, because this is a big ol' army with a big ol' communion behind it. And Vanheim is relatively small and relatively weak, and there's a lot of rich land right up here that I think Abyssia owns. So, anyway. In terms of what's happened to me this turn, I took a province there, took a province there from independent barbarians with relatively few casualties, actually. Those archers did good for me. In Cormark, a pair of Ubas broke my Ghoul siege. In Dry Fields, the last major Shinuyaman army went to war, killed a whole bunch of their own Bakemono shows, actually, against my province defense. They do have Howl available. They have these guys set up to spam elementals primarily, but one guy set up to cast a Horde of Skeletons. And the Dai Bakemonos are primarily archers. So, I'm moving my communion out, carrying a whole bunch of gems, and they're going to engage this army, and I will bet $10 that this communion wipes this army out. They're going to spam out a whole bunch of fire elementals and then cast Maws of the Earth to bog down the enemy infantry and do damage to them. They're going to spam out a whole bunch of air elementals at the same time, and they're going to howl. So there will be wolves coming from all directions simultaneously. It's going to be bad for this army. I don't think they can stop it. Aristwaddle and Slab Brickjaw are both coming back to Shinuyama, where they will both start cranking out helots. I'm recruiting Lion Tribe archers, because I can recruit them here for some reason, as well as Cyclops warriors for siege strength. I want to be able to explode this fort in relatively short order. It has almost no defenses, so I should be able to, if I can crack the fort, I should be able to swarm in and pretty much take it out without a whole lot of commitment. If this army heads towards Shinuyama, it's going to die. He may not know that, or he may have a different idea. My scout is attacking this province just in order to keep this fort shut down. I don't want him able to recruit here, and I'll be moving this little army up to put the fort under siege since all the mages have left. I think this is the last death ride of Shinuyama. I think Great Grey Shrike is basically trying to go out in a blaze of glory because he really has nothing left. Vanheim is moving in on Shinuyaman territory, which is kind of expected. This army here in Emmerich. Where's battle in Emmerich? There it is. Not too scary. 3 Einhirs, 3 Huskarls, and 6 Trolls. I think even if we collide at this fortress, I think my little force of helots will take them out just with archer fire, pretty much. The Trolls, at least. The Einhirs will be tougher, but I do have them outnumbered 8 or 9 to 1. Well, I have them outnumbered 6 to 1 with my helot warriors, so I think I can win it. Slab Brickjaw, actually, Slab might, well, he can't make it, so yeah, he'll just go back here. And Aristwaddle with his map move 31 also couldn't make it, so yeah, we'll just go back to Shinuyama. That'll be fine. I'm forging a Ring of Regeneration there. Latarak is also going to forge a... I don't want to use up all my nature gems because I want to save some nature gems in order to eventually go and take Mother Oak away from Uruk, because an extra 10 nature gems per turn would be fantastic. It's not the best gem gen, but it is a gem gen, and it's a nice one. I'm going to get in contact with Pythium, see if I can convince him to dispel Agartha's Earthblood Deepwell, and if I can send him some gems to assist in that endeavor, I will. I do have a small Astral Pearl income per turn. It'll go back up once I retake this province. Actually, I'm going to move Aristwaddle in here, because either they will move away, and it won't be relevant that he's here, or they will attack, and I would bet lose, and will try to retreat and have nowhere to retreat and be destroyed, or they will move here and it won't matter, and he'll just be combined with this army. So, no matter what, I don't think there's really a bad outcome. I don't think Aristwaddle is going to die in this battle because they don't have the mage power to Horde of Skeletons and overwhelm him with spam. Now the Daibakemonos are a little frightening. What spells could he cast that would make him better? He could cast Incinerate. That would be interesting. It does armor negating damage. He could cast... Oh, he can just cast Magma Eruption. Yeah, dude. Don't even. Just summon Earth Power and start throwing Magma Eruptions like they're going out of style. Sure, I mean, why not? Cast spells. Because he's natively Earth 2. When he summons Earth Power, he'll be Earth 3. Yeah, he'll be able to do that for a good long while. So he'll kind of stand out front, throwing Magma Eruptions. And given the maws of the earth and all that, I don't think many enemy infantry are going to reach him. If they do, he should be able to beat down a few, especially with those fire elementals swarming around him. Shouldn't be a problem. I don't think he'll be in much danger. Just to be sure, yeah, he's about level with the front line of the Trophimos oppressors. So he'll be fine. Yeah, there we go. So that's going to be the turn. I'm moving a bunch of scouts around, as you can see. You can see all these gray lines of scouts going everywhere. I'm moving some troops into this province just to kind of bulk up Boat Eater. And if Pythium won't help me against Agartha, I am going to kick them out of the lake. They don't have a great way to stop me. Admittedly, I'm using Independence 2, but I've built up Independence a little more single-mindedly than I think they have. They've got about 20 units there. I've got 45 units here and another 54 there, so I've got about 100. I think I can sweep them out of the lake if they try to put up a fuss. That said, I'm a little uncomfortable about all this. Like, this is about 210 units, and a couple of them are built up in some pretty big communions. If they come in against my forts, I will immediately sally and cause absolute devastation. But I'm forging a pair of winged shoes in order to support that. Wherever they go, I'll be able to put the winged shoes on somebody, sally out, and earthquake them to death. But that will be a problem for another turn, if indeed it becomes a problem. We don't technically have a non-aggression pact. I do have a non-aggression pact with Agartha, but I can, of course, cancel it. Take 3 turns, starting to count from that time. I also have a non-aggression pact with Tianxi. So, we'll see where we go. But in any case, thanks for watching. Also, Caverns of Gnek. That other half of the Shunuyama and Bakemono shows attacked me in Caverns of Gnek and was defeated. Let's actually view that battle, just to see what fun things happened. We have our 2 cave crabs and our province defense up front. My Trophimos oppressors unfortunately do not have magic. I don't know what happened there. I had a Hound of the Underworld. Oh, that's right. These were my patrol troops. I had them set on retreat. Oh, yeah. So they all retreated. That's fine. That's just peachy. He's spamming out Raise Dead because he's unscripted. And my Bakemono show go up against their Bakemono show, but mine have some support, and so mine win. Especially with the cave crabs, because the cave crabs are... Wow. That cave crab took a huge whopping hit. I think I hit him with a magma bolt by accident. Oops, sorry, cave crab. Actually, I want to see what hit that cave crab that did so much damage. Nope. It was just a really, really good damage hit and a really, really low protection roll. That's all it was. Yeah, he got 18 on 2d6 for his damage roll against 17 plus 3. Why only 17? Because his protection is 22. Yaris are piercing damage, so they do treat protection as 20% lower, I believe. But 20% of... yeah, I guess actually that is about 4 or 5. Okay, fair enough. In any case, that's the only interesting thing that happened there. It is a little bit annoying. My Hound of Twilight has retreated to Spring Spires, where it's doing no one any earthly good. And I also can't recruit a commander to get it back. So I'm going to recruit a commander down there, just to go pick it up. In any case, I'm summoning more cave crabs here. They're amphibious troops. I'll be able to forge somebody a water-breathing item to lead them underwater once I have like 10. And that will support fighting either Agartha or Pythium, because they both, of course, have plenty of water provinces that I would like to take over. So, that's the turn, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, it is on our turn 39, and something bad happened last turn. Let's look at this battle in Shinuyama. So, recall, this was the battle I was pretty solidly confident about, because I have a big battle communion, and they've never let me down yet. Well, this time they let me down, and I'll tell you why. So, we're summoning elementals, we're casting spells back and forth, they howl, I counter howl, because I have these lizard shamans in my communion, right? Now hold up. Lizard shamans. So here's Malua the shaman. He's about to cast howl. Here's one of my shamans I'm using as a communion slave. Do you notice something missing? Yeah, that's right, he doesn't have earth power on him, because he came into the communion after earth power was cast. This shaman has earth power on him. He still has higher fatigue than a lot of my slaves, because he is getting extra fatigue from all the spells, but he has earth power. And this shaman has earth power. But this shaman does not, and this shaman does not. And notice how their fatigue is up in the 40s, and my shackled mage's fatigue is like down in the teens and 20s. Maybe 20s somewhere. It might just all be in the teens. This is a problem, and I don't realize it's a problem yet. But we get our howl and the counter howl. The wolves are fighting all over the place. They're fighting each other. They're keeping each other from killing my mages. We go several rounds. Lots of spells are flying around. Lots of elementals fighting. In the background, we have a couple thunder strikes going off. The enemy earth elementals are being kind of distracted by my elementals. We're fighting an Uba back here, but didn't quite manage to kill it. Although we did give her crippling problems, including the fact that she's lost both arms and has to resort to headbutts. But let's check out our mage fatigue. Shackled mage, 108. Ooh, baby, why are they so high? 111. On this shaman, 119. Well, they're so high because let's look at the units here. Now, let's go into the unit overview. Communions are extremely complicated. Basically, I just screwed up when I was calculating fatigue. So I summoned a whole bunch of elementals, which of course is a 100 fatigue spell and does extra fatigue to everyone except the people who share the path. Oh, by the way, also, his god is here. I found her. Didn't know she was here, but here she is. He has a great enchantress. So let's find my Trophimos oppressors, shall we? Trophimos oppressor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for one thing. That's one more oppressor than I've had anywhere else. For another thing, look at this. Maws of the Earth. A couple of my guys were scripted to cast Maws of the Earth, which is a great spell. The problem is, its competition is Thunderstrike in this situation, or Acid Rain. Thunderstrike and Acid Rain are both much lower fatigue spells. Thunderstrike is 50 fatigue, Acid Rain is 30, and Maws of the Earth is 100 Earth fatigue. So, with these guys casting Maws of the Earth, then he was casting, for some reason he just cast like flying shards and worthless garbage. Also, Oh, that's my priest. Never mind. But Astros cast Maws of the Earth, which did some damage there. Epidaros was casting Maws of the Earth. Apaisos was casting Maws of the Earth, and actually appears to have hit himself. Or no, that's Fire Elemental Fatigue. Ionius was casting Thunderstrike, which is fine, but after summoning some Air Elementals. And Astros here is casting Blade Wind, which is also okay, but not going to do a huge amount of damage. But so with 3 or 4 people casting Maws of the Earth, I forget who it is, I kicked my fatigue up way too high, way too early. Notice, this guy only has fatigue 72 because he's an Earth random. I was casting too many Earth spells and not enough of other kinds of spells. Panopius is fatigue 157, twice as much fatigue as my Earth slaves. Fatigue 86 on air, 98 on water. It was specifically the fire slaves and the shamans that got hit the hardest. The Earth slaves got hit the least because I had my communion weighted too heavily towards high fatigue Earth spells. So watch what happens. We keep casting spells, including Earth spells like Blade Wind. And as we do, fatigue keeps going... Well, his fatigue is actually going down. Now it's stabilizing. But fatigue is over 100 now on pretty much everybody. Fortunately, we're casting lower level spells at this point. So we're not building up fatigue nearly so quickly. But nonetheless, fatigue is not really going down. And what's going to happen here is, as the wolves continue to get in and fight me a little bit, and we continue to cast spells, fatigue starts to creep up again. On the Earth guys, it's only creeping up very slowly. On the Fire guys, it's creeping up quicker. And I'm not sure where the issue starts. But pretty soon here, I think it might be Shopsh. He's a communion slave, and he has 170 fatigue, 166 there. I think it was the shamans who went first. But in any case, what happens is, we're throwing spells around like they're going out of style. You can see the Howl Wolf fight on the edges of the map there. I don't even know what elementals are whose at this point. The enemy chaff is largely distracted back in the corner fighting wolves, which is exactly what I wanted that to accomplish. But somebody, my communion master shaman, Malua, starts casting solar rays and body ethereal. We're throwing down big fire spells and such. We're up to 169 fatigue on him, 103 on the Earth guys, so the Earth guys are still doing fine. But the Fire and now the Air guys are really spiking. So, this communion lasted a long time, and it cast a lot of spells. But of course, once it was off script, its spells weren't terribly useful a lot of the time. Like, the Trophimus Oppressors are getting kills, but they're not getting super valuable kills, especially not when they cast Fireflies. All these wolves, I think these are my wolves, because they're leaving me, but let's count mages real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hey, hold up. How come I only have 2 shamans? 2 shaman slaves, that is. Well, it's because 2 of them are dead. And I don't know exactly when they died, but they died. And when they died, they threw the communion off kilter. The communion was pretty much holding together, but once 2 of the slaves went, fatigue started stacking up. Now, once you go over 200 points of fatigue, you start taking damage, and you take 1 point of damage per 50 points of fatigue or per spell that pushes you over 200. So every time I cast a spell now, this guy starts taking damage, or almost every time. And now he's down to 6 hit points. And this guy's down to 8. This guy's at 8. That guy just died. This guy's at 10, still at 10. This guy's over here is at 10, and this guy's at 9 with 3 afflictions. He's lost both his eyes. So you can see where this is going. There's still a lot of enemies on the table, including all of their mages. We didn't manage to kill any of them with those air elementals early on. The air elementals got distracted and went down into the infantry. So, while we continue bombarding the enemy with spells, in a few rounds, the wolves start to add up, and the slaves die. And as the slaves die, the fatigue burden on the surviving slaves is higher. and they go away pretty quick. I think they may almost all be gone at this point. We've got this guy. So let's see how many slaves we have left right now. Yeah, 3. Magic boost 1, which means we're doing more fatigue from our spells because we have lower paths, which means we're inflicting more fatigue on the fewer slaves that are left. And as a result, it all goes to shit. So this is infamously the issue with communions. They self-destruct like this eventually if you don't end the battle. And since I didn't end the battle, my communion self-destructed. So, the end result. My Trophimos oppressors got a ridiculous quantity of kills, but 2 of them died, all of my shamans died, and all my shackled mages died. The entire communion imploded. There were several factors that each kind of contributed. The shamans not getting the earth power contributed. My spellcasting being weighted towards maws of the earth contributed. And of course, I think at some point some of the wolves got in and just killed 1 or 2 of my communion slaves, which tipped me over the edge. I was fairly stable for a while, and the communion did last a remarkably long time, given that the battle went wrong, but eventually it went down. Anyway, we killed over a third of the enemy army, but mostly their chaff. Most of their infantry Daibakemonos are dead. Their Bakemono shows are dead, their Kappa, their Obakemonos. They still have all their sorcerers, however they have no gems left at this point. So their Ubas, their Bakemono sorcerers, they're reduced to just casting spells that don't cast gems, which is fine by me. Retreating, I did get my Trophimos oppressors all back into the fort in Shinuyama, but that was definitely a loss, and it was a significant blow. Shackled mages are cheap, but I still lost 11 shackled mages, 5 shamans, 2 Trophimos oppressors, and 4 sages. All told, I lost over 20 mages. Cheap mages, but 20 mages nonetheless. That's close to 2,000 gold, and of course it's 20 fort recruitment turns worth of recruitment. So that was a big hit. Now, that said, this is definitely Shinuyama's death ride. That's all he has left. So, to be honest, I'm moving troops forward and I'm just breaking the siege. I've got Pronos, Aristwaddle, and Slab Brickjaw coming in. They can't cast Howl anymore. They can only Skelespam. And 3 Fire Shielded Tyrants I think will be able to burn through the Skelespam. The Daibakemono will be a little bit of a problem, but I do have a reasonable quantity of chaff to help me out, including a pack of Cyclops warriors that should do some damage early on, and I have some Gigante warrior bodyguards. So all told, when I break the siege, I will have something like 100 units. More like 80. The Skelespam is going to be a problem, not going to lie, but I should be able to... I think I can win this one. If I want to play it safe, then what I'll do is wait 1 turn, because I have Electos and Hulk Smash coming. Teleimenes is going to take longer. I also have, and I haven't really shown him off, Sextus. Sextus is that stalker that washed up on the shore a little while ago. I've geared him out to the teeth. He's got a bag of winds, he's got a frost brand, he's got a parrying dagger, he's got armor to give him protection as well as his etherealness, he's reinvigorating, he's fire and cold resistant, he's a pretty good assassin at this point. He could still be killed by a mage casting, like, point blank range damage spells into him, and that's probably what will kill him, but I can move him in here and assassinate. What I'm afraid of is if I wait a turn, this army will move somewhere else and become a huge pain again. They'll break in a couple of turns, and I think they're going to try to do that. So, I think I'm just going to go in. It's kind of a risk. I may lose another... tyrant, but if I can win, it'll be worth it to just get this over with. Over here, I'm besieging this fortress just to lock it down. I've got this fortress already besieged and locked down. So as soon as I kill this army and besiege this fortress, Shinuyama will be officially done, and will be able to do nothing but wait for the end, which is fine. In other news, this turn, Earthblood Deepwell was dispelled. Fantastic. However, Pythium cast the Eyes of God. The Eyes of God is an enchantment that basically lets you see everything, including score graphs. And it lets you see Dominion, it lets you see all magic sites, it lets you see armies, although not accurately, it automatically dispels enemy illusions and phantasms. So phantasmal warriors and such, phantasmal army, are of no use against somebody who's cast the Eyes of God. Now, there is actually a specific counterspell to the Eyes of God in particular. Let me show you. It's called Fate of Oedipus. It's enchantment 4. It costs 75 fire gems, so it is expensive. And it automatically dispels the Eyes of God and blinds the mage who cast it. So that's an option. I'm not going to do it, but it's an option. Other options here. If I wanted to wait, I could have Slab Brickjaw and Electos both cast Fires from Afar on this army. That would hit them a whole bunch of times. It probably wouldn't kill anyone because they have a ton of Dai Bakemonos and Bakemono Sorcerers. And Bakemono Sorcerers are tough enough that Fires from Afar is very unlikely to kill them. If it hit Ubaz or his god, it could kill them. But that's only 9 out of the... how many units exactly do they have left? Yeah, they've got about 85 units left. So if Fires from Afar hit an Uba, it would almost certainly kill her. If it hit the Great Enchantress, it would probably kill her. But I don't think... I just don't feel like it's worth it. Yeah, I don't feel like it's worth it. We're just gonna go in hard. We're summoning some Claymen, because I have gems for it. Down here, we continue to summon Cave Crabs. You should also summon Cave Crabs, please. Eriadu, why don't you... Yeah, research for now. I don't have a good thing for you to do at the moment. A little short on gems, except for death gems. I may... Actually, what could you forge with your 2 death? Anything useful? More skull staffs. You could forge the Crown of Bones, which won't be terribly helpful to me. You can forge Skull Mentors, and you can forge Bane Venom Charms. Bane Venom Charms are kind of a... They're kind of a dick move. I don't usually like to use them. I acknowledge, by the way, that Bane Venom Charms are extremely powerful. Basically, you put this on a stealthy shade or something, you sneak it into enemy territory, have it sit on a fort, and it murders like 5 or 10% of the population per year. I'm sorry, per turn. Plus it diseases people who are in the province. It's like really, really bad news. There was a battle in Pavonia. Oh, I lost my scout in Pavonia. That's what happened. Yeah, Pythium is patrolling his provinces very effectively, and with Eyes of God, that will help him even further. So moving across his fortresses now is going to be almost impossible with scouts, which is going to be some pretty significant holes in my scouting parties. I have also continued to kill enemy scouts. I killed a Phacian scout there. I killed a Tianxi scout in Shepherd's Haven. So I'm doing a pretty decent job of patrolling my forts as well. But we're just going to keep... yeah, Maws of the Earth. I like it. It's a powerful spell. Coming to the conclusion that in Communions it's probably too dangerous to be casting. It's too high fatigue. I'm just going to stick to Thunderstrike and Acid Rain, basically, for damage. Recruitment-wise, I had a lot of money this turn, like a lot of money, because I hadn't been recruiting many troops. So I'm recruiting Cyclops down here for Siege Chaff. I'm recruiting Archers over here for regular Chaff. Down here, I'm not recruiting anything, but I am recruiting 2 Trophimos Commanders to pick up these troops that I've been recruiting in Marignan, because I have a lot of heavy cavalry, like quite a few heavy cavalry here. Like 21 heavy cav. Plus, of course, a whole bunch of regular infantry. And over here, I'm still recruiting cataphracts and infantry. So I'm starting to build up quite a cavalry contingent. My palisades down here will be done in 2 months, and then I will upgrade it. Still recruiting turtle warriors up here. Let's get my scouts moving a little bit more. They're just gonna, you know, go off and die, as scouts do. I can make somebody else a prophet, but I want to make a tyrant my prophet, or I want to make somebody valuable my prophet, and right now my tyrants are all busy. Could make an Elder Cyclops my prophet. They cost a lot of money too. I don't know if are there holy items? Are there items you need holy to forge? I don't think so. Maybe a couple of the construction 8 items. But in any case, when my next tyrant pops out, I may make him my prophet unless he got a really good random. But so, things are moving along apace. Like I said, this next turn there's going to be a battle here. Slab should break the siege. 3 Tyrants plus Chaff, I think, can clean up this army. It doesn't have any... gems. It can't howl. They can Skeleспam, but not super effectively. I mean, they can still Skeleспam, don't get me wrong. But the Bakemono sorcerers here aren't really set up for it, and there's only 4 of them, so I don't think they can out-Skeleспam 3 Tyrants. The risk would be the die Bakemonos outright just killing them. But with Temper Flesh, I don't think they can kill me very quickly. And Slab Brickjaw in particular has a Ring of Regeneration. So I think once he casts, you know, Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, and goes Berserk, and so has protection well over 30, I think he's not going to go down. Aristwaddle might potentially. Pronos might potentially. Especially because Pronos still has that never healing wound. But we'll see how it goes. And if Pronos gets wounded, he still has recuperation, so he should be fine. I thought I... Do I have another Ring of Regeneration? Did I forge another one? I do have another Ring of Regeneration. It's unfortunate that Slab already has one, and these 2 are not on labs. So maybe I will wait, actually. Maybe I'll just have you cast Fires from Afar. Won't do much, but I have the gems for it. Have you... Here's what I'm afraid of. What I don't want is, I don't want this army moving away and hitting one of my Tyrants alone. So yeah, I'm just going to go in. We're going to do it. We're going to do it to it. It'll be a good time. And even if they lose, they'll still do a lot of damage, and then I'll be able to bring in my real army the turn after that, or in 2 turns, and wipe them out. So, shouldn't be too much of an issue. We'll have this fortress under siege. It doesn't have enough troops to stop this army. We have this fortress under siege. It definitely doesn't have enough troops to stop this army. And as soon as we finish this off, we'll move troops out and knock the place down. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.